Goodbye, Mom. I'm Amber Ashford now. That note arrived 3 weeks after I gave my daughter $2,800,000. I'm Gloria Patterson, 57 years old, and the woman who wrote those words had just called me an embarrassment in front of her new fiancé's family. She thought the money came from her dead father's family investments. She had no idea I'd spent 30 years saving every dollar, working double shifts at the community center, living in a modest apartment so she could have everything she wanted, while she was buying a $1,800,000 house in Buckhead and telling people she'd overcome her difficult upbringing with a struggling single mother. I was watching her build a new life based on rejecting me completely. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. Because what happened next will show you that sometimes the most painful lesson you can teach your child is the truth about who really sacrificed everything. I need you to understand how we got here. For 30 years, I worked as executive director of the Westside Community Development Corporation in Atlanta. We built affordable housing, supported small Black-owned businesses, helped families who were one paycheck away from homelessness. The salary was decent, $108,000 a year, but it wasn't wealth, it was stability. My husband Vincent died 8 years ago, heart attack at 48, sudden and devastating. Amber was 20, finishing her junior year at Spelman College. Vincent had been careful about insurance. His corporate finance job at SunTrust came with a $1,500,000 life insurance policy. We'd bought our home in West End in 1998 for $180,000, sold it in 2017 for $800,000 after Vincent died. His pension paid out $400,000. My own savings from 30 years of work, living modestly, investing carefully, came to $500,000. Total, $4,200,000, more money than I'd ever imagined having. Money that represented Vincent's life, our marriage, 3 decades of careful planning. I kept $1,400,000 for retirement. Gave Amber $2,800,000 when she finished her MBA at Emory last year. Told her it came from Vincent's family's old investments, money that had been growing for decades. It was easier than explaining that her father's death had created wealth, that my sacrifice had built security, that every dollar represented something she'd never had to worry about. The lie seemed harmless at the time. Amber had been so proud of her father, had grieved so hard when he died. Telling her the money came from his family's wisdom felt like honoring his memory. I didn't realize I was creating a narrative where my contributions didn't matter, where my work was invisible, where my 30 years of sacrifice disappeared into someone else's legacy. 3 months ago, Amber drove up to my apartment in Northeast Atlanta in her new BMW 5 Series. $78,000 worth of German engineering, pearl white with cream leather interior. She was wearing a designer suit I'd never seen before, carrying a Gucci bag that probably cost more than my monthly rent. My apartment was modest, $1,950 a month for 2 bedrooms, in a building where I'd lived for 6 years. I drove a 2018 Honda Accord with 94,000 miles on it. Solid, reliable, paid off. I could have afforded more, but I'd spent my life working with families who struggled to keep roofs over their heads. Luxury felt obscene when I knew how many people were hurting. "Mom, we need to talk." She didn't sit down, didn't accept the coffee I offered. Just stood in my living room looking at my furniture like she was calculating its resale value. "I've been thinking about our relationship, about who I am versus who you are." "Amber, what's this about?" "Let me finish." Her voice was cold, controlled. "I'm 28 years old. I have an MBA from Emory. I'm engaged to Christopher Ashford. His family owns properties across 3 states. They're connected to everyone who matters in Atlanta. Christopher Ashford, I'd met him twice. Handsome, polished, the kind of Southern gentleman who called you ma'am while looking through you. Old Atlanta money. The kind of family that traced their wealth back to industries they didn't like to discuss too specifically. I'm happy for you, honey. Don't call me honey. She pulled out an envelope, heavy cream stationery, expensive. I received Dad's inheritance from his family's investments, $2,800,000. That money represents my real legacy. My heart stopped. The Patterson family investment legacy. The story I'd created to make the money feel like it came from wisdom rather than tragedy. That's wonderful, Amber. Your father would be proud. Would he? She looked around my apartment again. Would he be proud that you're still living like this? That you never achieved anything beyond managing a community center? The words landed like slaps. Managing a community center, 30 years of work, helping thousands of families, building affordable housing, creating opportunities, reduced to managing. Amber, my work is meaningful. To who? Because it's certainly not impressive to the people I'm meeting through Christopher's family. Do you know what it's like trying to explain that my mother runs a nonprofit in West Atlanta? That you drive a Honda and live in a $1,950 apartment? I didn't realize you were ashamed of me. I'm not ashamed. I'm just realistic about social positioning. Christopher's family has standards, expectations, and honestly, I can't keep pretending we're on the same level. She handed me the envelope. Inside, a note card. Thick, expensive paper. 12 words in her perfect handwriting. Goodbye, Mom. I'm Amber Ashford now. Don't contact me. Amber, wait. I've changed my name. Amber Patterson Ashford. Eventually just Amber Ashford. I'm starting fresh with people who understand what real success looks like. Real success? Not spending your life helping poor people stay poor. Not driving old cars and living in modest apartments when you could do better. Not being content with insignificance. She walked out. The BMW pulled away. I stood in my living room holding that note, reading those 12 words over and over. Goodbye, Mom. What Amber didn't know, what she couldn't possibly imagine, was where that money really came from. Every dollar she'd spent on her house, her car, her new life, had come from my sacrifice, my savings, my 30 years of choosing her future over my comfort. And she'd just called my life insignificant. I didn't sleep that night, just sat at my kitchen table, reading Amber's note until the words blurred. By morning, I'd made coffee 3 times and drunk none of it. My phone stayed silent. Amber had blocked my number like she'd promised. 2 days later, Veronica Hughes called. She'd been my colleague at the CDC for 15 years before moving to lead a housing initiative in Midtown. We'd worked together on dozens of projects, had stood side by side at city council meetings, arguing for affordable housing funding, had celebrated wins and mourned losses. Gloria, I just saw Amber's engagement announcement in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Says she's marrying into the Ashford family. Since when did Vincent's people have old money? I'd never told Veronica the truth about the inheritance, never told anyone. It had seemed simpler to let people believe Vincent's family had been quietly wealthy, that good planning had created Amber's security. Veronica, can I ask you something? Of course. If you sacrificed everything for your child, and that child called your life insignificant, what would you do? Long pause. Gloria, what aren't you telling me? Nothing yet. But I might need a witness soon. That afternoon, I drove past Amber's new house in Buckhead. The neighborhood where Tyler Perry lived, where old money and new money competed to see who could build the most impressive mansion. Amber's place was 4,200 square feet, red brick with white columns, the kind of house that screamed I've arrived. $1,800,000. Bought with money, she thought, came from her father's family's wisdom, money that actually came from his death and my 3 decades of careful saving. I parked across the street and watched her load shopping bags into her BMW. Neiman Marcus, Saks Fifth Avenue, designers I recognized from magazine ads but had never considered buying. She'd spent more in 2 months than I spent in 2 years. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Miss Patterson, This is Keisha Williams from Atlanta Magazine. I'm writing a feature on young Black women in philanthropy. Your daughter Amber came up in my research. Could we talk about how you raised such an impressive young woman? I stared at that text. Amber had positioned herself as a philanthropist, using money I'd given her to buy social standing while calling my actual 30 years of community work insignificant. Not yet, I texted back. But soon. That evening, I did something I hadn't done since Vincent died. I called my sister Denise in Birmingham. She was 5 years older, had watched me build my career, had helped with Amber when Vincent's work took him traveling, had been at his funeral holding me up while Amber fell apart. "Gloria, you sound terrible. What's wrong?" I told her everything. The money, the lie about its source, Amber's note, the rejection, the BMW and the house and the designer clothes. "And you're surprised?" Denise's voice was sharp. "Gloria, you've been enabling that girl since she was born. Vincent spoiled her because he felt guilty about working so much. You spoiled her because you felt guilty about Vincent being gone, and now she thinks she deserves everything without gratitude. I was trying to give her security. You gave her entitlement. There's a difference. So what do? You tell her the truth. You let her know that every dollar she's spending came from you sacrificing your comfort for her future. You stop protecting her from reality. That would destroy her engagement. Christopher's family would never accept her if they knew she came from regular working-class money, not old investment wealth. Then maybe she'd learn that love based on lies isn't love at all." After I hung up, I sat in my apartment looking at photos of Amber growing up, birthday parties I'd worked double shifts to afford, dance classes, piano lessons, summer camps, Spelman's tuition before she got scholarships, the Emory MBA I'd helped fund. Every opportunity I could provide. And somewhere along the way, I'd taught her that she deserved it all without ever having to acknowledge where it came from. My phone buzzed again. This time, an Instagram notification. Someone had tagged me in Amber's post. I didn't have Instagram, hadn't seen the point. But I created an account that night, found Amber's profile, and started reading. Grateful for my father's family's wisdom in building generational wealth. Finally free to live the life I was meant for, surrounded by people who understand excellence. Sometimes you have to leave behind toxic environments to discover your authentic self. Toxic environments. She'd posted that 6 days ago. The photo showed her at some charity event, wearing what looked like a $5,000 dress, standing with Christopher and his parents. All of them white, all of them elegant, all of them looking like money had never been a concern in their entire lives. The comments were full of congratulations. Friends from Spelman and Emory celebrating her success, strangers praising her for overcoming her difficult background. I scrolled further back, found posts from March, right after she'd received the money. New chapter, new life, leaving behind the limitations of a working-class mindset. My father's family showed me what's possible when you think bigger than paycheck to paycheck. Paycheck to paycheck. I'd never lived paycheck to paycheck. I'd been methodical, careful, building savings while working a meaningful career. But Amber had rewritten our history to make herself the hero who'd escaped poverty. Another post from April. Met the most amazing family. The Ashfords represent everything I've been striving toward. Finally found where I belong. Where she belonged. Not with the mother who'd raised her. With a white family whose acceptance depended on believing she came from their kind of background. I clicked on Christopher Ashford's profile. It was private, but his profile picture showed him at a country club, polo shirt, and confident smile. His bio said third-generation Ashford properties, preserving legacy, building future. The Ashfords would never accept Amber if they knew the truth, that her money came from life insurance and a nonprofit director's lifetime of savings. That she'd grown up in West End, not in some imagined world of family estates and investment portfolios. that she was the daughter of a community organizer who drove a Honda and rented an apartment because she'd given everything to her child. Denise was right. I'd created this. By lying about the money's source, I'd let Amber build an identity based on fantasy. By staying silent about my sacrifices, I'd made myself invisible in my own daughter's story. But the question Denise had asked stayed with me. What would destroying her engagement actually teach Amber? That lies have consequences? Or that her mother was vindictive and cruel? I sat in my apartment until 3 a.m. looking at photos of Vincent. He'd been so proud of Amber, so determined that she'd have every opportunity he'd missed growing up working class in South Atlanta. We'd both worked so hard to give her a different life. And we'd succeeded. She had a different life, one where we didn't exist. My phone lit up with another notification. Amber had posted again. This time, a photo of her engagement ring. 3 carats, emerald cut, platinum setting. The caption said Christopher designed this himself. When you're loved by someone who understands excellence, everything changes. Someone who understands excellence. Not the mother who'd worked 30 years helping families in crisis. Someone else. Someone who'd never had to sacrifice anything. That's when I realized I wasn't angry. I was heartbroken. Because I'd spent 28 years raising a daughter who was now a stranger. And she'd become that stranger using money I'd given her. May arrived with Atlanta's oppressive heat and a phone call that changed everything. Keisha Williams from Atlanta Magazine called again, this time with a specific request. Miss Patterson, I'd love to feature you and Amber together. A mother-daughter story about generational success. How you raised a young philanthropist despite your own humble circumstances. Humble circumstances. Like 30 years directing a community development corporation was something to overcome rather than celebrate. What has Amber told you about her background? That her father's family had significant investments that provided her security, that you worked in social services but struggled financially, that she's using her inheritance to give back in ways you couldn't afford to. It's quite inspiring, really. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Amber wasn't just rewriting our history privately. She was creating a public narrative where I was the struggling single mother she'd risen above. Miss Williams, I'm going to decline the interview. But you might want to verify some of Amber's claims about her background. Verify how? Public records, life insurance payouts, property sales. Sometimes the story people tell isn't the story the documents support. I hung up before she could ask more questions. But I'd planted a seed. Journalists like Keisha dug into inconsistencies. If she looked hard enough, she'd find that Vincent Patterson's family had no history of wealth, that the money in Amber's accounts had very specific, traceable sources. That afternoon, I did something I'd been avoiding. I called Linda Chen, the financial advisor who'd helped me manage Vincent's life insurance payout and structure Amber's inheritance. Gloria, it's been a while. How are you? Linda, do you still have all the documentation from when I transferred the money to Amber? Of course. Why? I might need you to verify the source of those funds. Publicly. Long pause. Gloria, what's going on? My daughter is telling people the money came from her father's family's old investments. She's using that narrative to position herself in circles that wouldn't accept her if they knew the truth. The truth being that it came from life insurance, property sale, pension payout, and your personal savings. Exactly. And you want to correct that narrative? I want to stop enabling the lie I created. Linda was quiet for a moment. Gloria, I need to tell you something. If you expose this publicly, Amber will be humiliated. Her engagement might end. Her social standing will collapse. Are you prepared for that? I don't know, but I know I can't keep watching her erase me from her own story while spending money I sacrificed everything to give her. Think carefully about this. Once you speak publicly, you can't take it back. After I hung up, I sat in my office at the CDC, looking out at the neighborhood I'd served for 3 decades. West Atlanta. Working families. Small businesses struggling to survive. The community that had shaped me, that I'd chosen to serve even when I could have taken higher-paying jobs elsewhere. Amber called this insignificant, called my life something to escape from, and she was doing it using money I'd earned serving these very people. My phone buzzed. A text from Veronica. "Gloria, you need to see this." She'd sent a link to Atlanta Social Scene, one of those websites that covered charity events and society parties. The headline read, "Amber Ashford partners with Buckhead Youth Foundation." The article described Amber as a young philanthropist from a distinguished family using her inheritance to support underprivileged youth. There was a photo of her at some gala, standing next to Christopher and his mother, all 3 of them holding champagne glasses. The quote that broke me was in the 3rd paragraph. "I'm passionate about helping young people from difficult backgrounds," Amber had said. Growing up, I saw firsthand how poverty limits possibilities. My mother struggled as a social worker, barely making ends meet. I want to create the opportunities she couldn't provide. She'd made me poor. Had rewritten 30 years of solid middle-class stability into poverty. Had positioned herself as the savior helping people like the mother she'd left behind. And she was doing it using $2,800,000 I'd given her. I called Veronica back. "I need you to tell me honestly. Am I wrong to want to correct this?" "Wrong? Gloria. She's lying about you to elevate herself. She's using your sacrifice to buy social position while calling you a failure. But if I expose her, I destroy her engagement, her reputation, everything she's built. Everything she's built on lies. But she's still my daughter. And you're still her mother. The mother she's erasing from her life story. The mother she called insignificant. Gloria, at some point, love has to include boundaries." That evening, I went to therapy for the first time since Vincent died. Dr. Sharon Morris, a Black woman in her 60 seconds who'd been recommended by a colleague. Her office was in Virginia Highland, comfortable and professional. "Tell me what brings you here, Gloria." I told her everything. The money, the lie, Amber's rejection, the social media posts, the magazine articles, the way my daughter had rewritten our history to make herself more acceptable to her fiancé's family. "And now you're considering exposing the truth?" "I don't know if I'm considering it because it's right or because I'm hurt. Can it be both?" I looked at her. "What do you mean?" "You can be hurt by what Amber's done and still make a principled decision about boundaries. The two aren't mutually exclusive. But if I destroy her social position, am I being principled or vindictive? What would you be teaching her? That lies have consequences. And what would you be teaching yourself?" That question stopped me. "I don't understand." "Gloria, you've spent your career helping other people set boundaries, establish stability, build better lives. But what boundaries have you set for yourself? What have you taught yourself about accepting treatment that diminishes you?" I sat with that question. For 30 years, I'd worked with families in crisis, helping them advocate for themselves, teaching them that accepting mistreatment perpetuated cycles of harm. And here I was, accepting my daughter's mistreatment because challenging it felt cruel. I taught her that she could take everything and give nothing back, I said quietly. By giving her money without requiring gratitude, by lying about its source to protect her father's memory, by staying silent when she called my work insignificant. I taught her that my contributions don't matter. And now? Now I need to teach her something different, even if it costs me everything. Dr. Morris leaned forward. "Gloria, before you make any decisions, I need you to consider something. If you expose Amber publicly, your relationship with her will likely never recover. Are you prepared to lose your daughter to teach her a lesson?" "I already lost her. She said goodbye. The question is whether I'm prepared to let her keep pretending I never mattered." I left therapy with no clear answers, just a growing understanding that silence was its own kind of lie, that by protecting Amber from the truth about where her money came from, I was enabling the exact narrative that erased me. That night, I opened my laptop and started writing. Not an angry letter. Not a vindictive expose. Just a clear, factual account of where Amber's money actually came from. Vincent's life insurance, the house sale, his pension, my 30 years of savings. The truth, simple and undeniable. I saved the document, but didn't send it anywhere. Not yet. Because once I released this information, there would be no going back. Amber's world would collapse, and I'd have to live with being the mother who destroyed her daughter's dreams. Even if those dreams were built on erasing me from existence. June brought Atlanta's summer storms and an invitation I'd been half expecting, half dreading. Heavy cream cardstock, embossed lettering, the kind of invitation that cost more than some people's weekly groceries. The Ashford family cordially invites you to the annual summer charity gala benefiting the Atlanta Youth Foundation, honoring this year's Young Philanthropist Award recipient, Amber Patterson Ashford. They'd included my name on the guest list, Gloria Patterson, not as Amber's mother, just as another name among 300 guests. A courtesy invitation to the woman whose daughter was being celebrated for generosity funded by money I'd given her. The gala was in 3 weeks. July 15th, at the Cherokee Town and Country Club. Black tie. The kind of event where Atlanta's old money mingled with new money, where social position was established and maintained, where being seen mattered more than what you actually did. I held that invitation for 2 days before calling Veronica. "Are you going?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to see her receive an award for philanthropy funded by my sacrifice. Part of me wants to stand up and tell everyone the truth." "Gloria, if you're going to do this, you need to be strategic, not emotional." "What do you mean?" "I mean, if you stand up at that gala and expose Amber, you need documentation, you need witnesses. You need to be absolutely certain of your facts because the Ashford family will try to discredit you." She was right. The Ashfords had money and connections. If I accused Amber of lying without proof, they'd paint me as a jealous, unstable woman trying to ruin her daughter's happiness. That afternoon, I called Linda Chen again. "I need copies of all the documentation, the life insurance payout, the property sale, the pension distribution, my bank statements showing the transfers to Amber's account." "Gloria, are you sure about this?" "No, but I'm tired of being erased." Linda was quiet for a moment. "I'll have everything ready by next week." "But Gloria, I need to ask you something. Have you tried talking to Amber privately first?" "She blocked my number." "So, unblock yourself. Show up at her house. Send a letter. Try one more time to resolve this without destroying her publicly." After I hung up, I sat with that suggestion. Linda was right. I hadn't actually tried to have a conversation with Amber since she'd walked out of my apartment. I'd gone straight to planning revenge, to documenting proof, to preparing for public confrontation. Maybe that made me just as bad as Amber, using power without trying communication first. That evening, I drove to Buckhead, parked outside Amber's house, and wrote a letter by hand on plain notebook paper. Not expensive stationery, not formal language, just honest words. "Amber, I know you don't want to hear from me, but before this goes any further, you need to know the truth about the money you received. It didn't come from your father's family's investments. It came from his life insurance when he died. From selling our house, from his pension payout, from 30 years of my savings. Every dollar you've spent came from my sacrifice. I'm not asking for gratitude. I'm asking you to stop calling my life insignificant while building yours on my contributions. Please call me. We need to talk. Mom." I put the letter in her mailbox and drove away, feeling both brave and pathetic. Brave for trying one more time, pathetic for still hoping she might care. 3 days later, the letter came back, unopened. A sticky note on the envelope in Amber's handwriting, "Return to sender, no longer accepting communication from this address." She hadn't even read it. had sent it back without opening it. That hurt worse than the original rejection. Dr. Morris's words from our last session echoed in my head. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their choices. But was that love? Or was it revenge dressed up in therapeutic language? I spent a week wrestling with that question. Going to work, managing housing projects, helping families, coming home to my quiet apartment, and staring at that returned letter. Amber had chosen not to hear the truth, had chosen to continue building her life on lies, which meant I had to choose what came next. Veronica came over on a Friday night with Thai food and hard questions. Have you decided? I think so, but I'm terrified I'm making the wrong choice. What's the right choice? I don't know. If I expose her, I'm the vindictive mother who destroyed her daughter's happiness. If I stay silent, I'm enabling her lies and teaching her that erasing people has no consequences. Gloria, can I tell you something I've never told anyone? I looked at her. Veronica had been my friend for 15 years, but we'd always kept things professional, focused on work rather than personal struggles. My son is in prison, she said quietly. Been there for 8 years. Armed robbery. He was 19, desperate for money, made a terrible choice. Veronica, I had no idea. Nobody does. Because I've spent 8 years being ashamed of him, visiting him in secret. Hiding that part of my life because I thought it reflected on me. But you know what I learned? What? That protecting people from consequences doesn't help them. It helps us feel like good parents. But it doesn't actually help them become better people. So you think I should expose her? I think you should stop protecting her from the truth about who she's become. Not because it helps you, because it might be the only thing that helps her. That night, I confirmed my attendance at the gala, bought a dress from Macy's, nothing extravagant, but appropriate for the event. Black, simple, dignified. The kind of dress a nonprofit director wears to formal events. I practiced what I'd say, kept it factual, kept emotion out of it. Just the truth about where Amber's money came from, and documentation to prove it. But the night before the gala, I barely slept. Kept thinking about Amber at 8 years old, crying in my arms after Vincent's funeral. Amber at 16, getting her driver's license and hugging me with pure joy. Amber at 22, walking across the stage at Spelman, looking back at me in the audience with pride. All those versions of my daughter still existed somewhere inside the woman who'd sent my letter back unopened, and I was about to destroy the life she'd built. Dr. Morris had asked if I was prepared to lose my daughter to teach her a lesson. The truth was, I'd already lost her. She'd said goodbye. She'd blocked my number. She'd erased me from her story. The question wasn't whether I'd lose her. The question was whether I'd let her keep pretending I never mattered. At 2 a.m., I got out of bed and read through all the documentation Linda had prepared. Life insurance policy showing Vincent's $1,500,000 payout. Property records showing the sale of our West End house for $800,000. Pension distribution of $400,000. My bank statements showing 30 years of deposits and the final transfer of $2,800,000 to Amber's account. Every dollar accounted for. Every claim verifiable. The truth, documented and undeniable. I put the papers in a folder and laid out my dress for the gala. Tomorrow night, 300 of Atlanta's elite would gather to celebrate Amber's generosity, and I was going to stand up and tell them where that generosity really came from. Not because I wanted revenge, but because silence was its own kind of lie, and I'd been silent long enough. The Cherokee Town and Country Club looked like something from a movie about old Southern wealth. White columns, manicured gardens, a circular driveway where valets took keys to BMWs and Mercedes. I pulled up in my Honda Accord, handed the keys to a valet who tried to hide his surprise, and walked into a world where I clearly didn't belong. The ballroom was elegant in that effortless way that only serious money achieves. Crystal chandeliers, round tables with white linens, centerpieces that probably cost more than my monthly rent. 300 guests in evening wear, holding champagne glasses, laughing with the ease of people who'd never worried about money. I found my assigned table. Number 47, in the back near the kitchen doors, as far from the head table as possible while still technically being in the room. The seating chart had been deliberate. Put Gloria Patterson where she can't be seen or heard. I sat down next to a couple I didn't know. They introduced themselves, made polite small talk, asked what brought me to the gala. I told them I was here to see Amber Patterson Ashford receive her award. They nodded, smiled, returned to their conversation with each other. The head table was front and center. Amber sat between Christopher and his mother, Catherine Ashford. She wore a gown that probably cost $8,000, her hair professionally styled, her makeup flawless. She looked like she'd been born into this world, like wealth and elegance were her birthright. Christopher's father, Richard Ashford, stood to welcome everyone, talked about the importance of giving back, of using privilege responsibly, of honoring those who demonstrated exceptional philanthropy. Then he introduced Amber. Tonight, we honor a remarkable young woman who understands that true wealth means sharing with those less fortunate. Despite her own mother's struggles in social services, Amber has taken the legacy left by her father's family and transformed it into meaningful change for Atlanta's youth. Despite her own mother's struggles, I felt every person at my table glance at me, putting pieces together. The woman in the Macy's dress sitting at table 47 must be the struggling mother they were talking about. Amber stood, walked to the podium with perfect posture, and practiced grace. She smiled at the crowd, at Christopher, at his parents. Thank you so much for this incredible honor. Growing up, I saw poverty's impact firsthand. My mother worked tirelessly in social services, but her resources were limited. When I received my inheritance from my father's family investments, I knew I had to do more than they could. This award represents not just my work, but my commitment to creating opportunities that weren't available in my own childhood. Opportunities that weren't available. She'd gone to Spelman, had graduated debt-free because I'd paid her tuition before scholarships kicked in, had gotten her MBA at Emory with family support, had received $2,800,000 that I'd spent 30 years accumulating. And she was telling 300 people that I'd failed to provide for her. I felt something crack inside me. Not anger. Something colder. Clarity. I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor, loud in the quiet room. Every head turned toward table 47. "Excuse me," I said, my voice steady. "I need to say something." Security started moving toward me, but Richard Ashford held up his hand. He probably thought I was going to cause a scene that would be worse if they dragged me out. Better to let the struggling social worker have her moment, then escort her quietly away. "I'm Gloria Patterson," I said, walking toward the front of the room. Amber's mother, the one she just described as having limited resources and failing to provide opportunities. Amber's face went pale. Christopher's mother looked horrified. The room was completely silent. I reached the podium, pulled the folder from my bag, and set it down. I'd like to clarify something about Amber's inheritance. It didn't come from her father's family's investments. It came from his life insurance policy when he died 8 years ago, from selling our family home, from his pension payout, and from 30 years of my salary as executive director of the Westside Community Development Corporation. I opened the folder, held up the first document. This is the life insurance payout, $1,500,000. This is the property sale record, $800,000. This is the pension distribution, $400,000. And these are my bank statements showing 30 years of deposits and the transfer of $2,800,000 to Amber's account last year. Amber stood up, her hand on Christopher's arm. "Mom, what are you doing?" "I'm telling the truth. The truth you've been hiding to impress people who wouldn't accept you if they knew you came from a working-class black family in West Atlanta. The truth about who really sacrificed so you could have this life. You're embarrassing yourself, Catherine Ashford said, her voice icy. I'm correcting the record. Every dollar Amber has spent, every donation she's made, every bit of generosity she's being honored for tonight, came from money I gave her. Money I earned serving the community she now claims to care about. I looked at Amber, saw tears forming in her eyes, saw Christopher pulling away slightly, his expression changing as he processed what I was saying. Saw his parents exchanging glances, calculating the social damage. I'm not here for revenge, I said to the room. I'm here because my daughter erased me from her story while using my sacrifice to buy her way into yours. And I won't be silent about that anymore. The silence in the ballroom lasted maybe 10 seconds. Then chaos. Phones came out immediately. People were recording, texting, posting to social media. I heard whispers spreading like wildfire across the room. Amber stood frozen at the head table, her face cycling through shock, horror, and something that might have been rage. Christopher's mother stood up, her voice cutting through the noise. Security, please escort this woman out. She's clearly disturbed and disrupting our event. I'm leaving, I said, gathering my documents. But these records are public. Anyone can verify what I've said. Life insurance payouts, property sales, pension distributions, bank transfers. It's all documented. I walked back down the center aisle. Every eye in the room followed me. Some faces showed sympathy, others disgust, most just curiosity. At table 47, the couple I'd sat with had their phones out, already Googling, already fact-checking my claims in real time. Richard Ashford tried to recover. Ladies and gentlemen, family matters can be complicated. Let's not let this distraction take away from the important work we're here to celebrate. But the damage was done. I could hear it in the murmurs, see it in the way people were looking at Amber. The elegant young philanthropist had become the ungrateful daughter who'd lied about her background to marry into money. I handed my valet ticket to the attendant, waited for my Honda, while Mercedes and BMWs pulled up around me. My hands were shaking. The adrenaline that had carried me through the confrontation was fading, leaving behind the crushing weight of what I'd just done. I'd destroyed my daughter in front of 300 people. I'd exposed her lies, humiliated her publicly, possibly ended her engagement. And I'd done it deliberately, with documentation, making sure she couldn't deny it. Was that love? Or was that the cruelest thing a mother could do? My phone started ringing before I got home. Veronica first. Gloria, it's all over social media. Someone posted video. Are you okay? I don't know. Do you regret it? I don't know that either. Then Linda Chen. I just got a call from a reporter asking about the financial documents. Word is spreading fast. Then Dr. Morris. Gloria, I saw the news. I think we should schedule an emergency session tomorrow. I turned my phone off, drove home in silence, and sat in my apartment looking at the city lights through my window. Somewhere out there, Amber was dealing with the fallout. Christopher was probably reconsidering everything. The Ashfords were calculating the social damage. And I was alone, wondering if I'd taught my daughter a lesson or just proven that I was exactly the vindictive, bitter person she'd probably paint me as. The next morning, my phone had 47 missed calls and 89 text messages. I scrolled through them, some supportive, many critical, a few from journalists wanting interviews, one from Keisha Williams at Atlanta Magazine. Miss Patterson, I need to speak with you urgently. There are questions about the validity of your claims. I called her back. Everything I said is documented and verifiable. I've already started verifying. But Miss Patterson, do you understand the damage you've caused? Do you understand the damage Amber caused by erasing me from her story while using my money to buy social position? That's between you and your daughter, but you chose to destroy her publicly. I chose to tell the truth publicly. She chose to lie publicly first. Keisha was quiet for a moment. "I'm writing this story whether you cooperate or not. You should know that public opinion is very divided. Some people are calling you brave. Others are calling you the worst kind of parent." After I hung up, I finally looked at social media. The video had been posted to Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, millions of views already. The comments were brutal. "Imagine being so jealous of your daughter's success that you destroy her at a charity gala. This mom is a hero. That daughter needed to be exposed. Both of them are toxic. The daughter for lying, the mom for public humiliation. Black mothers sacrificing everything and getting nothing but disrespect. This story is too real." The responses split along predictable lines. Some saw me as a wronged mother finally standing up. Others saw me as vindictive and cruel. Almost no one seemed to see the complexity, the years of enabling that had led to this moment, the impossible choice between silence and truth. By noon, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution had published a story. Charity gala disrupted by family drama. Local executive claims daughter lied about inheritance source. The article included quotes from people at the gala. Richard Ashford saying, "This is a private family matter that should never have been made public." A guest saying, "I felt terrible for Amber. Her mother humiliated her in front of everyone." Another saying, "If what Gloria Patterson said is true, then Amber built her entire social position on lies." My work phone started ringing. The CDC board chair. "Gloria, we need to talk about how this reflects on the organization. I didn't do this as the CDC's executive director. I did it as a mother. Those things aren't separate. You're a public figure. Your actions reflect on us." That afternoon, Amber posted on Instagram a photo of her and Christopher, his arm around her, both of them looking solemn. "I'm devastated by the events of last night. My relationship with my mother has always been complicated. What she did was hurtful and vindictive, but I won't let one person's bitterness destroy the good work I'm trying to do. Thank you to everyone who's reached out with support." She'd positioned herself as the victim, made no acknowledgement that anything I'd said was true, just painted me as bitter and vindictive. 3 days after the gala, Keisha Williams published her full investigation in Atlanta Magazine. The headline read, "The Price of Social Climbing: How One Young Woman Rewrote Her Past to Fit Atlanta's Elite." The article was thorough and damning. Keisha had verified every document I'd provided, had interviewed Linda Chen, who confirmed the source of Amber's money, had pulled public records showing Vincent Patterson's life insurance payout, our property sale, his pension distribution, had traced every dollar from my accounts to Amber's. But the article didn't paint me as a hero. It painted both of us as complicated, flawed people who'd created a toxic dynamic together. Gloria Patterson spent 30 years building financial security for her daughter through sacrifice and careful planning. But by lying about the money's source, by telling Amber it came from her father's family rather than acknowledging her own contributions, Gloria taught her daughter that maternal sacrifice was invisible and worthless. Amber Patterson Ashford built a new identity on that foundation, erasing her working-class black roots to gain acceptance in white elite circles. When Gloria finally spoke the truth, she did so in the most publicly damaging way possible. Both women made choices that led to this moment. Neither emerges unscathed. I read that paragraph 5 times. Keisha was right. I had lied first. I had made myself invisible. I had taught Amber that my contributions didn't matter by refusing to claim them. The fallout continued spreading. Christopher's parents released a statement through their lawyer. The Ashford family values honesty and integrity above all else. We are reevaluating our relationship with Miss Patterson Ashford in light of recent revelations about her background and character. Revaluating. The engagement wasn't officially broken, but everyone knew what that meant. Christopher had pulled back, his family was distancing themselves, and Amber's carefully constructed entrance into their world was collapsing. By the end of the week, Amber had stepped down from all 3 charity boards. The official statement said she needed to focus on personal matters, but the reality was clear. No one wanted to be associated with the woman who'd lied about her background and disowned her mother. Veronica called with updates from Atlanta's nonprofit community. People are talking. Some think you were brave. Others think you destroyed your daughter out of spite. But Gloria, there's something else you should know. What? The Westside Community Development Corporation is getting attention because of this. Donors are asking questions about your leadership, about your judgment, about whether someone who handles family conflict this way should be running a community organization. My stomach dropped. Are they trying to remove me? The board is divided. Some want you to take a leave of absence. Others are defending you. But Gloria, this is affecting your work, your reputation, everything you've built for 30 years. I'd known there would be consequences. I hadn't fully calculated that those consequences would threaten the career I'd sacrificed so much to build, the work that had defined my adult life. That evening, Dr. Morris's words from our emergency session echoed in my head. Gloria, you chose the nuclear option. You didn't try mediation, didn't attempt family therapy, didn't give Amber space to come around on her own. You went straight to public destruction. You need to ask yourself why. Because she wouldn't listen, or because you wanted her to hurt the way you were hurting. I'd insisted it wasn't revenge, that it was about truth and boundaries and teaching consequences. But sitting alone in my apartment, watching my career wobble, watching my daughter's life implode, I had to face the possibility that Dr. Morris was right. Maybe I had wanted Amber to hurt. Maybe I'd chosen public humiliation because private conversation hadn't worked fast enough. Maybe I was exactly as vindictive as Amber's Instagram post had claimed. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mom? Amber's voice, small and broken. The first time she'd called me Mom in months. Amber. Christopher broke off the engagement. His family won't see me. 3 charities asked me to resign from their boards. People are calling me a fraud and a liar. I stayed silent. Waiting. Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted? No. I wanted you to acknowledge that I mattered, that my sacrifice meant something, that calling my life insignificant was cruel and wrong. So you destroyed mine. I told the truth. You're the one who built your life on lies. You could have told me privately. You could have called, written, shown up at my house. Instead, you humiliated me in front of everyone who mattered. I tried. You sent my letter back unopened. You blocked my number. You made it clear you wanted nothing to do with me. So this was punishment. Was it? I sat with that question. Maybe it was both. Maybe it was telling the truth and punishing you at the same time. Maybe those things aren't as separate as I wanted to believe. Amber was crying now. Soft sounds of someone who'd held it together as long as she could and finally broke. I don't know how to fix this. Neither do I. Do you even want to fix it? Or did you just want to prove you could destroy me? I thought about that. Really thought about it. I wanted you to understand what you'd taken from me. Not just the money, my dignity, my place in your story, my 28 years of being your mother. You erased all of that to fit into a world that wouldn't have accepted you if they knew the truth. And now that world knows the truth, and they've rejected me anyway. So congratulations, Mom. You were right. I built my life on lies, and now it's all gone. Are you satisfied? Am I satisfied? I repeated her question, feeling the weight of it. No, Amber, I'm not satisfied. I'm heartbroken. Silence on the other end. Then, why did you do it? Really? Not the boundary-setting explanation or the truth-telling justification. Why did you stand up at that gala and destroy everything I'd built? I looked out my apartment window at the Atlanta skyline, thinking about honest answers, because I was tired of being erased. Because watching you receive an award for generosity funded by my sacrifice while calling me insignificant broke something inside me. because I wanted you to feel what I felt when you sent that note saying goodbye. So it was revenge. It was complicated. It was truth and hurt and boundaries and revenge all mixed together. I'm not going to pretend I was purely motivated by principle. I was angry. I was hurt. And yes, part of me wanted you to suffer the way you made me suffer. More silence. Then Amber's voice, small and defeated. Christopher's mother called me a fraud. Said I deceived them about who I really was. And she's right. I lied about everything. Where I came from, who you were, how I got the money. I built this entire identity on pretending I was something I'm not. Why did you need to pretend? Because being Gloria Patterson's daughter wasn't enough. Being from West Atlanta wasn't enough. Having a mother who ran a nonprofit wasn't enough. I wanted to be someone important, someone impressive, someone who belonged in rooms with people like the Ashfords. And you thought you couldn't be that person as yourself? I knew I couldn't. Do you know what it's like walking into those spaces as a Black woman from a working-class background? The way people look at you, the assumptions they make? I had to rewrite my story to even get through the door. I understood that more than she knew. 30 years in nonprofit leadership, constantly proving I belonged, constantly fighting assumptions about what a Black woman from South Atlanta could achieve. But I'd fought by being undeniably competent, not by pretending to be someone else. Amber, I get it. The pressure to prove yourself, to fit in, to be accepted. But you didn't just rewrite your story. You rewrote mine. You made me poor when I wasn't. You made me struggling when I was stable. You made my work insignificant when it mattered to thousands of people. You erased me to create space for a version of yourself that didn't include me. I know, and I'm sorry. Those 3 words hung in the air, the apology I'd wanted for months, delivered too late to prevent the destruction we'd both caused. Are you sorry because you got caught? Or are you sorry because you understand what you did was wrong? Both. Is that honest enough for you? Maybe it was. What happens now? I don't know. Christopher won't return my calls. His family's lawyer sent a letter about the engagement ring, wants it back. The charities won't reinstate me. People I thought were friends have blocked me on social media. I'm pretty much radioactive in Atlanta society. What about your house? I can keep it for now. The mortgage is manageable. But Mom, the money's almost gone. I spent so much trying to impress people, trying to fit in. The furniture, the clothes, the donations, the charity events. I have maybe $400,000 left from the original $2,800,000. She'd burned through $2,400,000 in a year. Money I'd spent 30 years accumulating, gone in 12 months of trying to buy acceptance. And your job? She'd been working in marketing at a tech startup before the engagement. They let me go. Said the publicity was affecting company culture. They didn't say it explicitly, but I know it's because I'm the ungrateful daughter who disowned her mother. Nobody wants that association. The consequences were real and extensive. But sitting with them, hearing Amber's voice break as she described her life falling apart, I didn't feel the satisfaction I'd expected. What do you want from me, Amber? I don't know. Help? Forgiveness? For you to tell the press this was all a misunderstanding? I know I don't deserve any of that. But I'm asking anyway. I can't tell the press it was a misunderstanding. Everything I said was true. So you won't help me? I didn't say that. But I need to understand what help would look like. Are you asking me to lie to undo your consequences, or are you asking for something else? Long pause. I'm asking if there's any way back from this. If we can have a relationship after everything that's happened. If I can rebuild something real instead of the fake life I constructed. That was a different question. A harder question. Amber, I don't know if we can have a relationship. Too much has been broken. You called me insignificant. I destroyed your engagement. You erased me from your life. I humiliated you publicly. Those aren't things you just apologize away. So we're done? You expose me, and then we just never speak again? I'm saying I don't know what comes next. I'm saying that rebuilding trust after this level of betrayal, from both of us, is going to take more than one phone call. Both of us? You think you're the only one who did wrong here? Amber, I lied to you about where the money came from. I let you believe a fantasy because it was easier than claiming my contributions. I enabled your entitlement by giving you everything without requiring gratitude. And when you hurt me, instead of trying to work it out privately, I chose the nuclear option. I stood up in front of 300 people and destroyed you. We both made terrible choices. I could hear her crying harder now. I don't know how to fix this. Neither do I, but I know it doesn't get fixed by me rescuing you from consequences or you pretending none of this happened. It gets fixed, if it gets fixed at all, by both of us being honest about what we did and why we did it. Will you see me? In person? Not to fix everything, just to talk? I thought about that. About sitting across from my daughter after everything that had happened, about facing the wreckage we'd both created. Yes, but not right now. I need time. You need to sit with these consequences, and we both need to figure out what kind of relationship, if any, we actually want with each other. How much time? I don't know. Months, maybe. This isn't something we solve quickly. Mom, I'm scared. I don't know who I am without the identity I created. I don't know how to be just Amber Patterson anymore. Then maybe that's what you need to figure out. Who Amber Patterson actually is. Not Amber Ashford, not the heir to imaginary family wealth, not the young philanthropist impressing white society. Just Amber, the woman you are without the performance. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment feeling hollowed out. The conversation hadn't brought closure or resolution. Just two broken people acknowledging they'd hurt each other, neither sure how to move forward. My phone buzzed again. Veronica. Gloria, the board met. They want you to take a 60-day leave of absence. Paid, but mandatory. They're calling it time to handle personal matters, but we both know it's about the optics. I understand. Do you? Gloria, you're being sidelined from work you've dedicated 30 years to because of how you handled your daughter. Was it worth it? Was it? I'd told the truth. I'd set boundaries. I'd refused to be erased. But I'd also damaged my career, destroyed my daughter's engagement, and created a situation where both of us were worse off than before. I don't know, I told Veronica. Ask me in 6 months. 6 months later, I was living differently. Not dramatically different, but shifted in ways that mattered. The 60-day leave had become permanent. I'd resigned from the CDC in October, realizing that the organization I'd built needed leadership that wasn't shadowed by scandal. My successor was younger, brilliant, untouched by family drama that had become Atlanta gossip. I was consulting now, helping other nonprofits with strategic planning, fundraising, board development, using 30 years of experience without the weight of being a public figure. The work was meaningful, the schedule flexible. The pay actually better than my director's salary had been. I'd moved too, not far, just to a small house in Grant Park, 2 bedrooms, a backyard, a mortgage I could easily afford. Leaving the apartment felt like closing a chapter. The place where Amber had rejected me, where I'd planned my revenge, where I'd spent months wrestling with guilt and anger. Amber and I had met for coffee 3 times. Awkward, careful conversations at neutral locations. We talked about surface things mostly. Her job search, which was proving difficult. My consulting work. The weather. Atlanta traffic. We were strangers being polite, testing whether anything underneath the wreckage was salvageable. She'd moved out of the Buckhead house. Couldn't afford it anymore, she said, but I suspected the memories had become toxic. She was renting a condo in Virginia Highland, working as a program coordinator for a small educational nonprofit, making $52,000 a year, the same kind of salary she'd once called insignificant when describing my career. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Today was Thanksgiving, our first holiday since the gala. Amber had asked if she could come over. Not for a big family dinner, just the two of us, maybe Chinese takeout. Low pressure, low expectations. She arrived at 3 p.m. with a bottle of wine and visible nervousness. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, Amber." We sat in my living room, the awkward silence of two people who shared DNA but not much else anymore. I'd set out plates, ordered from our old favorite restaurant, the one we used to go to when she was in college, trying to invoke memories of easier times. "Your house is nice," she said, looking around, "more than the apartment." I decided I wanted a home, not just a place to sleep between work shifts. "That's good. You deserve that." We ate in uncomfortable quiet for a while. Then Amber set down her fork. "I need to tell you something. Christopher contacted me last month." I looked up, surprised. "What did he want?" "To apologize. He said his family had been wrong to judge me so harshly, that everyone makes mistakes, that he'd been too quick to end things." "What did you say?" I said no. I told him that relationship was built on lies and that starting over wouldn't change the foundation, that I needed to figure out who I actually was before I could be in a real relationship with anyone. I felt something shift in my chest. Pride, maybe, or hope. That must have been hard. It was. Part of me wanted to say yes, wanted to go back to that life, but I've been seeing a therapist, Dr. James Chen. He's been helping me understand why I needed to create that fake identity in the first place. "And why did you?" Amber looked down at her hands. "Because I never felt good enough. Growing up, Dad was this larger-than-life figure. Successful, accomplished, respected. And you were always working, always helping other people's families. I felt like I was never the priority, never important enough to come first." The words landed like stones. "Amber, you were always my priority. I know that now, but as a kid, I saw you leave for meetings, take calls during dinner, miss school events because of work emergencies. I internalized that as me not mattering enough. I was building financial security for us, especially after your father died. I know, but I was 20 years old and grieving, and my mother disappeared into work. I felt abandoned by both parents. One died, one buried herself in her career. I sat with that, letting the truth of it settle. You're right. I did bury myself in work. It was how I handled grief. But I never stopped to think about how that affected you. And I never told you how it felt. I just built up resentment, and then, when I got that money, I used it to create a life where I mattered to people, or at least where I felt like I mattered. But they didn't actually know you. No. They knew the version I created, which is why losing it all felt so devastating. I'd built my entire identity on a performance, and when the performance ended, I had no idea who I was underneath. And now? Now I'm figuring it out. I'm Amber Patterson. I work in education. I make $52,000 a year. I'm the daughter of Vincent and Gloria Patterson, both of whom sacrificed a lot for me, and I'm the woman who made terrible choices trying to be someone I wasn't. I reached across the table, took her hand. I'm Gloria Patterson. I spent 30 years serving my community while sometimes neglecting my daughter. I'm the mother who gave everything financially but not always emotionally. I'm the woman who chose public revenge over private healing because I was hurt and angry. We really messed this up, didn't we? Completely. We sat there holding hands across my kitchen table, two imperfect people who'd hurt each other badly, and were trying to figure out if forgiveness was possible. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Do you regret it? Standing up at that gala?" I thought about that question. I'd thought about it every day for 6 months. I regret how I did it. I regret the public humiliation, the nuclear option, the vindictiveness. But I don't regret refusing to be erased anymore. I needed to stop accepting treatment that diminished me. I just wish I'd found a way to do that without destroying you. I needed to be destroyed, Amber said quietly. The person I'd become, the identity I'd built, it needed to collapse. I couldn't grow into someone real while pretending to be someone fake. But did it have to happen that way? Maybe not. But Mom, we're both people who don't do things halfway. You spent 30 years building your career with total dedication. I spent a year building a fake identity with total commitment. When we hurt each other, we did that completely too. She was right. We were both all-in people, which meant our love and our harm both ran deep. Can we come back from this? I asked. I don't know, but I want to try. Not to go back to how things were because that was broken too, but to build something new, something honest. That's going to take time. I know. I'm not expecting us to be fixed by Christmas or even by next Thanksgiving. But maybe we can be in process. Maybe we can be two people learning to be honest with each other. I squeezed her hand. I'd like that. We finished dinner, washed dishes together, sat on my back porch as the November evening turned cool. We didn't solve everything, didn't erase the hurt or undo the damage. But we sat together, mother and daughter, broken and trying, honest for maybe the first time in years. When Amber left, she hugged me at the door. I love you, Mom. I should have said that more. I love you too, and I'm sorry for the ways I failed you. I'm sorry for the ways I failed you too. After she drove away, I sat in my living room thinking about everything we'd lost and everything we might slowly rebuild. The relationship we'd had was gone. The mother and daughter we'd been couldn't be recovered. But maybe we could become something different. Something more honest. Even if it was also more fragile. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? What city? What country? Drop it in the comments below. I love connecting with people around the world over these complicated stories about family, sacrifice, and the price we pay for truth. Hit that like button if this story made you think about your own family dynamics, about the people you've enabled, or the people who've taken you for granted, about the line between setting boundaries and seeking revenge. Share this if you know someone dealing with ungrateful children, or someone wrestling with how much to sacrifice for family, or someone trying to figure out if forgiveness is possible after deep betrayal. Someone who needs to hear that complicated family stories don't always have happy endings, but they can have honest ones. And subscribe for more real stories about sacrifice, boundaries, generational wealth, and what happens when love and resentment get so tangled up you can't tell them apart anymore. Because the truth is, family isn't simple. Parenting isn't straightforward, and sometimes doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing look exactly the same. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to the whole complicated story about what happened when I refused to be invisible anymore. And thanks for understanding that some stories don't end with villains punished and heroes vindicated. Some stories just end with broken people trying to be honest about how they got broken. See you in the next video.